And welcome back to Sports Check on this Monday morning. It's the last day of January 2022. We're keeping up with the news as it's happening all around the country and also having conversations around sport. Right now, let's move on to a conversation about a federation that released their report for 2021. And also this year, they will be turning 100. We're talking about Tennis Kenya, and we're joined by the federation's president, James Kenani. Thank you and welcome.
Most welcome. Thank you.
First of all, I've been looking at that report, and just to pick out some of the things from it is the 6 pillars that you're talking about. But also last year, 7 teams to represent Kenya in various events around the world, and 4 of those teams sponsored by the government of Kenya. Let's start with, from the sporting side, and you cannot fail to mention Angela Okutoi.
Sure, very sure. Yes. We are 100 years old this year and arranging the celebrations. As regards to 2021, we did have this COVID ravaged our sports, actually. We were not able to run all the events which we had planned, and all over the world there were restrictions. So it was also very difficult to send our teams abroad because of the COVID protocols. But nevertheless, we were able to send some junior events to the particularly to the CAN, the Confederation of African Nations. And it is as a result of Angela winning the African Championships in Tunisia that she was able to get the ticket to play in a Grand Slam event in Australia. So we also did send some wheelchair tennis. They went to Portugal, they played. They went to Nigeria, they again played, and that improved their ranking in the world. So at least those 2 did make achievements, and other junior events, the 12 and under, we sent them to Uganda, where they played, and they kept on earning points. But it's not to the magnitude that we had planned because of the COVID problem.
Well, that is the player. Then that's one of the pillars that we talk about competitions. We'll come back to it. But one of the pillars that you put out is player development.
Yes.
From your report.
Yes.
Tell us how you're working around this.
What we call player development is the possibility or the exercise of having to identify talented players at a very young age. There is a program which happily is sponsored by International Tennis Federation called Junior Tennis Initiative. We refer to it as JTI. This is really the fishing ground for players in the country. This is where we get to know who are good. Now, that means we have 25 schools countrywide where we send our coaches to have a look at what is happening, work up with the schools themselves a program which allows their kids to come out and train. And once they train, or we hold camps, training camps as well, then we do recognize where talent is. And those who are selected as being talented are given more intensive coaching. So we work in conjunction with the coaches. We did launch a coaching commission, which really is a part of Tennis Kenya, which specializes in coaching, identifying talent, and helping us grow. So we have various age groups at which the children are taken. At about 4, 5 years, 6 years, that's about it. If they're beyond 6 years, it's unlikely that they'll be very strong players in the future. So we identify talent at a fairly early age.
And when you're bringing them through the development, the other thing is a competition. How then do you get them competitive outside of just, for example, you've had the ITF juniors in Nairobi over the past week.
Yes.
How are you getting them engaged in competitions?
We do have a calendar of events that we produce fairly early, and then we do record those children as part of our teams, and the parents help them as well so that they vote a number, IP number, it's identification personal number, whereby they start entering their children in the events as per the calendar. At the same time, International Tennis Federation also has programs that run in Africa. And we tend to, for example, the zonals. We play against Uganda, we play against Tanzania, the countries that are within Africa. And beyond that, they also are invited. If they are good and have qualified, they are invited to more competitive countries in Europe where they play. And this is where we tend to have a problem, because we need air tickets for the kids to travel. We need a coach to travel. We need physiotherapists to travel. You know, the management personnel and technical personnel that will go and observe how these kids are performing, and then arrange special programs for them to be trained and work on their weaknesses and also work on their strengths. So we end up having a team. Also, we apply, because ITF does announce that International Tennis Federation does announce that countries are given the freedom to apply to host those tournaments in-house, so that we have foreign players coming to Kenya, for example. Now, that's where you also take advantage, because while we can only send a very limited number out there to play out of the country, we tend to have a large cluster of kids to play here in Kenya. And it's a great advantage when you host a tournament, because then you are able to reach a wider participation from our players.
Well, James Kenani is the president of Tennis Kenya, telling us about the pillars around the sport from the annual report. The other one is the World Cup of Tennis. On the men's side, it's a Davis Cup, and the women's is the Billie Jean Cup. And the team that was in the Davis Cup, they played in Egypt in August in the Africa Group 3, looking for promotion to enter, Euro Africa Group 2.
Yes.
And for the women, they're also in the Euro Africa Group 3. What about these two huge competitions?
The Davis Cup is a World Cup of tennis. It's really, as far as countries are concerned, that is the only event where they can play at the highest level. And even some professional tennis players, people who are well known, like Roger Federer, Djokovic, end up playing that kind of event. Djokovic had a few problems down there in Australia where Angie was playing. Now, this event, each country is allowed to participate, but you have to be at a certain level. They are now Group 4 is the lowest level. And Kenya is not playing the Group 4 league. We are playing the Group 3 league. Fortunately, the ministry did assist us and work with us the previous time when we were hosting the event here in Kenya. And we were promoted Group 2. And that was a real great achievement to go to World Group 2. But when it came, there were changes in the format. We had to go outside and play Indonesia in order to again play against those who had been dropped from Group 1. So we want to meet them in Group 2.
A playoff system.
Yes, a playoff it's a playoff. We didn't receive the support we had expected, and so we did not prepare adequately. We lost. So because we lost, we stayed in Group 3. Then now comes last year, when we had to go to Egypt once again to play, fighting to stay in Group 3. We played well, I must say so, but we had very little time to prepare our players, because all these activities require resources. We did not hold any events where we could charge entry fee so as to fund our activities. So we depended on the sports fund. Unfortunately, they were not able to help us to the extent that we wanted, and the money came rather late. Although we had applied, in fact, from the previous year's budget. So we had about 2 weeks or so of preparation. And you know, when you go and play at that level, just 2 weeks of preparation, you can't deliver the results. Our boys did try, and we lost by a point. Had we beaten Cote d'Ivoire Benin, sorry.
Benin, yes.
When they came here in Kenya the previous year and we thrashed them.
Yes.
We had prepared well. Actually, we had received also fairly good support from GOK, Sports Fund. But this year, it didn't work. They just won us by 1 point. They just beat us by 1 point. And so we're staying in Group 3. We have not been promoted to Group 2.
All right. I want to move on to...
As regards Billie Jean Cup.
Yes.
This is a women's competition. This used to be called Fed Cup. Now, it's named after the legendary Billie Jean King, the lady who has invested very heavily in women's tennis. Our country did participate, but in the Euro-Africa zone, but we were beaten thoroughly. Again, lack of proper training, lack of preparation, and essentially because of lack of funding. Because we have people who are willing to play. They are there. But you see, they need transport to get home, to get to the field. We need also a home where they can play from. Now, we have to borrow courts from Nairobi Club. They are not ours. We don't have public courts which belong to the federation. In Kenya, we don't have public courts. We have just private courts. Now, it's a strange arrangement. You don't have full control of when to play and where to play it and at what time. All those are complicating factors. We thought we had made a success when the Tennis Federation President, David Haggerty, visited Kenya. And that was the first time an ITA president visited Kenya. They had recognized something is happening in Kenya. Our president received him, and it was agreed that we will have our sports ground within the perimeter of the Kasarani.
Yes, because every federation is supposed to get some allocation, so that if it's cricket, they can have their ground.
Yes.
Motorsport have their track.
Yes.
Now, swimming use the aquatic center. So you're supposed to have a tennis center.
Yes. Unfortunately for us, this is still stalling. It hasn't moved on. We do hope, because actually, if it moves on, we shall transform tennis in Kenya. And as regards the training, I think there's something I need to point out. Why, for example, Angie was able to come out. We had established the High Performance Center. International Tennis Federation has only about 3 high performance centers in the world. Burundi was hosting the High Performance Center. It was requested by the ITF that we transfer it to Kenya when they had internal difficulties in the country. And we applied to the ministry here in Kenya, and they allowed us. They said, yes, we can host them. So when this center came to Kenya, our tennis grew dramatically. That's how Angie was able to rise from the ashes, because we were really down there. Now, there are also the boys who came up and were just about to pick up when unfortunately, I don't know, the government was not able, Sports Fund, because really it's Sports Fund. Sports Fund were not able to meet the cost of hosting that high performance center. It has since been transferred and is likely to be opened in Egypt. So we will lose that opportunity, and that makes it very difficult for our kids to go out in Egypt, live there, and get the level of training which is necessary to compete at the international level. We have that problem. Let me conclude about the Billie Jean Cup.
Yes.
Now, arrangements have been made. We are asking that we have an Africa group, so that when our ladies go there, they don't get whipped by more advanced teams. That requires infrastructure within our countries, so that we can raise the standard and can compete.
Okay. Finally, disability sport. Wheelchair tennis is a key pillar for you. Tell us about this as we conclude.
Wheelchair tennis is very exciting. Fortunately, we have some embassies that support us, like the Australian embassy. They have been very active in supporting us. We have the Nigerians who also host us. There's a corporate company there, Puma I think it's called, that gives us funds. Now, and the government has been very good I must say, the Sports Fund has been giving us support for wheelchair tennis. And we can't complain about resources when it comes to wheelchair tennis. What we are working on is making a more professional team, which is transitioning out while the junior team, the shadow team, comes in. And we've started that in Machakos and Thika, where the challenged can actually come in and play tennis. Now, that means we have to hold workshops there. We have to hold training events there so that they can learn how to play wheelchair.
Overall, the outlook as you celebrate 100 years, what's in store for the world of tennis in Kenya?
We are happy that it has coincided with Angie coming up as the first Kenyan to play at the Australian Open, a Grand Slam. You know, there are only 4 tournaments in the world. That is Australia, Paris, London, and then Wimbledon,
and the US Open.
And then the US Open. And for someone at her level, she was 17. On the day she arrived in Kenya, she turned 18. But she was playing as a 17-year-old, alone. There was not even a coach, because we could not afford to send a coach along. I can almost guarantee that if we had sent the coach along with her, she would have done better. So we're looking forward to this 100 years with a lot of hope and belief that this talent is going to be recognized and nurtured. Now, among other things, for example, tomorrow we are bringing Angie to play against the toddlers who have just started picking.
At our homecoming?
Yes, as part of our homecoming. On Wednesday, we shall give another one by Tennis Kenya now. And we do hope that the Ministry of Sports will join us.
All right. Thank you very much. James Kenani is the president of Tennis Kenya, telling us about, they're celebrating 100 years. And by the way, tune in on Saturday on Game On with Amphorapidi. Angela Okutoi will be here. Tomorrow and Wednesday, she will be on with our news team out there as she celebrates her homecoming. Thank you very much. Let us now, time for me to leave, and coming up next is Kurunzi ya Mashinani.